The rural element. I lived the rural element. I am the rural element. And I can remember when the roads in Whatcom County were dirt and gravel, and you got stuck in the wintertime, you couldn't get through. We've got paved roads, good services. And I haven't had any problem getting fire departments out or aid calls out. And I think that that's all done because we have gotten the kind of broad cross-section of, call them landmarks, whatever you want, but small areas that serve local communities. I don't shop in Bellingham. As a matter of fact, I come to Bellingham only to testify to these things, and otherwise I try to stay out of Bellingham. So I do all my shopping in Linden or Ferndale or Blaine and places like that, some in Everson too. And I like the things that you've done lately. I think you need to continue to do what you're doing. The only thing is that in reading through the stuff that I was given yesterday and today, I'd like to see you not limit the size of buildings in some of the landmark rezones, because I think if you're talking about, especially along I-5 on the Gateway Center there, if you're going to put a trucking center in there, you can't keep a trucking center in a 16,000 square foot building. I think a 30,000 square foot building would be much more appropriate for that kind of an arrangement. But as far as everything else going, you're right on track. You're doing what I like, and I am the rural element, so thank you.
There's always things could be better, could be worse. But I think probably 50 years ago, people probably felt the same way. And I'm really glad that this plan doesn't lock us into a specific course. And I really hope that when you look at the Lamrids and really the I-5 interchanges, is look at opportunity. Those pieces of property and those surrounding areas have to be available to businesses to come in. Over the past 15 years, the number of people that have told me, and really business people out of the Seattle area, they're like, we're never going to do anything in Whatcom County. We don't want to come here. And well, why is that? Well, the regulatory process here is a nightmare. Unfortunately, when anyone reads the Growth Management Act, it's really hard to disagree with anything that's in there. And I want to, but I really can't. I look at those 14 tenets and go, those are all noble causes. Unfortunately, I think that special interest groups that do believe in creating museums instead of places where people live have used those, have basically gone through and found the choke points and have used it to choke off any type of opportunity. When I read about Boeing leaving Seattle and being able to get a building permit in less than a month, I mean, that just blows my mind. It's unbelievable. We choke opportunity here so bad, and I hope that when you look at the Lamrids, you don't think that you're creating these little museums, like Mayberry USA, they're just going to stay this way. Things change. Give people the opportunity to change and grow. Who knows what it's going to be 20 years from now, what the new thing is going to be that we'll all be doing, or we'll be driving this county. I mean, a really great one is, I said it this morning, but the Super 8 Motel in Ferndale. People complain about that interchange there. And Carl, I think you drive through there all the time. You know what that place is like. I mean, it's actually encouraging to see trucks back in there and moving. But it's going to be, unless something goes on here soon, it's going to be plugged up. Look at that Birch Bay and Grandview area and make sure there's room for a company to come in. And then don't let staff turn it into a parking lot that they can't really
30
use.
30 seconds, please.
And I guess in the end of this is that when you go down through it, is the regulations are difficult enough in the county that the staff has to be directed that they're supposed to look for ways to help people achieve their goals, not immediately look for ways to stop them. And right now, and has been so, I think they're making rules that really none of you would really want to agree with. And they're doing it casually.
I got a little piece of general commercial there that 21 years ago I bought, and when I signed the title I didn't have any note on there that I better check with the city folks because they're going to come out and look at it all the time, but I can't develop it or anything. And also, as far as this other lady was talking about the taxes for the Meridian School District, that's a burden out there, and if you guys stopped any growth out there, you're going to stop taxes for the school district, for the county, for the city, and they put a 4-lane road out there with a middle turn lane in the middle. And that's been a long time coming, and it was supposed to be to develop that whole area. It's perfect for growth and business and everything all along it. People in the city don't like it. I don't go downtown to buy much anymore. We get all our stuff by going to Costco and before we even get to the freeway. You go downtown, you got to put money in your parking meter. I think you got to put some toll roads out, going out in the county for all these people that want to come out and look at us on the weekends. This is ridiculous that people in the city come out and have this big voice about how we are supposed to manage our land and take away our property rights. Anyhow, I think you guys are doing a good job and you finally got it right, so just keep it up there. One thing I don't think is right is the setbacks you have. They're a little bit too far.
I feel a little bit bad for the folks who live out in the county who are frustrated with city folk, did you call us? All of my water comes from county jurisdiction. Every drop of water that comes out of my tap comes from county property. And none of you who own property own any of that water. And I want to make only one statement. I wasn't going to speak, but I had an insight, and I thought I'd just point out, I've said this before in a different context, but I'd like to point out that strictly in terms of the Lake Whatcom watershed, I predict that if your rural element legislation actually looks like it's going to increase the amount of development inside of the Lake Whatcom watershed, that's going to be pretty much all that Bellingham Mayor Dan Pike needs to get the Department of Ecology to turn off all the exempt wells. And without those exempt wells, I'm not sure how you're going to get any development there. So I would caution the county council to consider whether or not you want to not only create a problem out for the property owners who live in the watershed, but also, again, give more political capital in the short run to Mayor Pike, who, if he can shut those wells off, if he can actually stop development outside of the city, inside the watershed, he's going to have a pretty easy time, or an easier time, getting reelected this year than if you were to be a little more circumspect, go with a 5-acre, one property per 5 acres. Just bear that in mind. If he actually persuades, if the city of Bellingham actually persuades ecology to do something about the exempt wells, what are you going to do for the folks that own property in those areas, inside the watershed line?
I've heard repeatedly tonight about, I've been here 5 years, 8 years, 6 years, 9 years, 4 years. Well, I didn't just move here like many of the others that spoke before. I am the 4th generation on my father's side, and my kids live here, and my grandsons are here now. So we're going on 6 generations here. This is not just maps with names for zones and comp plan designations. This is about real people, real families, and that are impacted. I am impacted twice by the decisions you make. My business is located on the Guide Meridian in the Laurel area, which is being proposed as a Lamrid. And my residence, as I said earlier, is located in the East Weiser Lake area, or Weiser Lake Road area. That was originally proposed to be downzoned to an R10 from an R2A. Just a discussion of the down zones immediately impacted on the value of our business property, reduced the equity available for us on operating our business. We rotate our notes every year on refinancing for capital for our business, providing funding. Just a discussion of the change of the zoning reduced the value of our property. The banks are nervous. And the amount of capital that we had available for our business was reduced by over $500,000. The loss of capital had a direct result on our business, resulting in layoffs of employees, the amount of business we conducted, which of course resulted in less sales tax that we collected and paid, less business taxes paid, and higher unemployment that our employees now were collecting. We are just one business. Impacts are cumulative when you take all the businesses together that contribute to the economic viability of Whatcom County. The GMA requires that economic viability be part of the planning process. This brings me back to my first statement. My family, my sons and daughters, my grandsons, and hopefully future generations, hopefully granddaughters too, To make all this planning work, there has to be opportunity for future generations, business owners, to create jobs, to generate taxes, to be able to live here, and to contribute to society.
30 seconds, please.
Without opportunity, they can only take from society, not contribute to it. Viable business and opportunity is part of the requirements of GMA. I want to thank all of you for carefully considering and balancing the needs of the rural area, and future opportunity, and protecting the rural lands. Thank
I
you.
am here on behalf of the family who has owned Governor's Point since the 1960s. I think you've heard some really good comments here tonight, and I think you've heard a lot that have completely missed the mark. There are a lot of issues you've heard about that are completely irrelevant to the designation of landmarks. For example, geotechnical issues, agricultural issues, floodplains, extension of city water service, transportation issues, existence of sewer in critical areas. Oh yeah, there's one more. NIMBYism. NIMBYism is not a landmark criterion, and that is very important for you to remember. Whether or not the city of Bellingham chooses to extend water service to Governor's Point is without merit in this discussion. It has no bearing on your decision making here. I think it's pretty telling that Friends of Chuckanut were able to get the city of Bellingham out here to tell you how to draw your landmark boundaries. As I've said, this is political, another non-landmark criterion. I just want to speak to Mr. Mariner's comment about the one dwelling unit per acre as too dense in the Chuckanut area. This is a little incomprehensible to me because that's the Chuckanut area's current status, and I just want to read a quick blurb from our comp plan to you. Chuckanut and North Bellingham both share a close proximity to urban areas and a historic development pattern significantly below the 4 units per acre considered characterized by urban growth. In both cases, the historic development patterns and parcelization are at about 1 unit per acre. In the Chuckanut area, steep slopes provide significant limits to future development, as do shoreline regulations. Schools, roads, water, and fire service are or can be made available to the present community and would not be unduly taxed if development within the defined areas were to continue at the present and historic patterns of 1 unit per acre. Chuckanut's a poster child for landward inclusion because it's already an area of more intensive rural development. That's true whether or not the people who live there like it or not. Those people are the ones who created the 1 unit per acre pattern that currently exists. I submitted additional information to you tonight about the built environment on Governor's Point, which I hope that you'll have an opportunity to review. I want to speak also to comments about the Chuckanut area getting an up zone. This is a significant down zone, and I believe it's probably the only residential landmark that has also been down zoned. So Governor's Point will go from the potential for 378 units to about 126 units. So I think that's an important point to make. One other thing, I think that what was done on Clark's Point is amazing. I think that's fantastic that the Clarks chose to preserve their property the way that they did, but that doesn't translate into requiring everyone else to do it as well. And I would wager that most of the people that have spoken here tonight about Chuckanut haven't given away any of their property rights.
We started tonight with Gary Davis's comments that in the 3 years you've had 500 written comments. I'd like to point out that over 10% of those have been from people in the Chuckanut area, not from Bellingham. And all of them have said that they would like to have 1 house per 5 acres. Now, that's not the end-all and be-all, but that's the reason we have public hearings, so that you can listen to your constituents. There are many places in Whatcom County where it's entirely appropriate for landward. Chuckanut is not one of them. Chuckanut having 1 house per acre is not an appropriate rural element. Those are too small a lots to be really rural, particularly when you put 125 of them together. You're essentially creating a 125-acre subdivision on Governor's Point. That is not rural, and it's not in a proper location. Governor's Point is one of the largest privately owned shoreline parcels between Seattle and the Canadian border. You have an opportunity to help maintain that as a gem of Whatcom County. It's also not appropriate that Governor's Point be in a landward. The landward law says that you should have a logical outside boundary. Now, there is a logical outside boundary. That is the area that is east of Pleasant Bay Road and east of the Burlington Northern Railroad tracks was developed in the late 20s, and many of those areas are 1 family per acre. But everything west of Pleasant Bay Road and the railroad tracks at the Governor's Point area, there's only 5 parcels there. 125 acres, 5 acres, 5 acres, 5 acres, and 1 acre. That's an average of 28 acres per parcel. That is not a built environment. It is not an appropriate area for a LAMERD. Members of the council, you have worked very hard, and the staff has worked very hard. You've invested 3 years into this, and much of what you have done has been very good. Don't throw it away. Zoning Governor's Point, 1 family per acre, and creating a LAMERD for more intensive development in a 125-acre parcel is simply giving the Growth Management Hearings Board the basis for throwing everything you've worked for
30 seconds,
back
please.
at you, and you've wasted 3 years. Don't do that. This is an appropriate area for 1 family for 5 acres. Thank you.
What are the wishes of the council? Councilmember Kirshner.
I would like to move to close the verbal testimony of the hearing, but keep the written record open until 11 a.m. on March 14th.
11 a.m. on March 14th being the start of our work session to respond to these comments, right?
That's right.
Okay, the motion's been made to close the verbal public testimony portion of this hearing, keeping the written opportunity for written comments that you can submit right up till our 11 o'clock meeting this coming Monday, where we're going to have a work session to discuss these items. Are there any questions or discussion on the motion? Councilmember Brenner?
No, this doesn't have anything to do with the hearing on the, when's that next hearing? 20.
The next hearing is on the 29th.
29th, okay. That's a separate issue.
Right. The product that comes out of the work sessions next week would be teed up on Tuesday night for introduction for the hearing on the 29th. Councilmember Mann?
I would encourage us to leave the written record open till the 29th. This has gone fast here at the last minute. We finally have a product for people to review. Usually we do keep the written record open right to the last minute.
That's going to be a separate hearing. So as soon as we finish our introduction on the 15th, then the written record is open and people can start submitting comments on that.
Oh, okay, so we introduce it
on Tuesday night, yeah. So up till Monday morning.
Assuming that on the 14th and the 15th we get to a conclusion.
Correct.
And then we introduce a finished
that night,
product.
That night, and then people can comment at that point.
Okay,
right.
Thank you, I'm persuaded.
Okay, any other questions or comments on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor of closing the verbal public testimony portion of this hearing at this point, but keeping the public written comment record open until 11 a.m. on the 14th, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Do council members have any other comments for the good of the order? We are adjourned. Thank you.